You are listening to a pleasure podcast. For more from our Sex Podcast Collective, visit pleasurepodcasts.com.
Welcome back to Private Parts Unknown, a podcast about love and sexuality around the world. I'm Courtney Kocak, and today we're ruining our lives. Or doing the best thing in the world. Or both. I don't know, honestly. That's right, privates. I am talking about having a baby. As you have heard from me before on this podcast, I always thought that I would be child-free. But lately, I've started contemplating motherhood. And I thought some of y'all might be thinking about kids too. So, of course, I'm bringing my research process to the podcast. I have been asking my guests just a few random questions here and there, and I decided to dive in head first and do a series of interviews. I'm going to do that intermittently as I figure this thing out. So to officially kick things off, I am talking to Ashley Hamer. She is a podcaster, musician, writer, and soon to be mother of two. And we are talking all about her journey from pregnancy to childbirth to parenthood. This was a fascinating conversation. There were a bunch of surprises, and it's got an absolutely perfect ending. So let's get into it. Okay, we are going to get into the conversation with Ashley. Don't you worry. But first, I've got to share my favorite lingerie brand with you guys. I would be remiss if I did not tell you about this brand that I am obsessed with, and it is Motherhood. Okay, I don't know if you've seen them on Instagram. I don't know how you could miss them, to be honest, because they have got it popping on their page. You go there and it is leather, and it is fishnets, and it is just sexy harnesses and bodysuits, and boobies are popping. They are so hot that I was like, I want to wear these guys all the time. I want to work with these guys. I want to be an evangelist for Motherhood. Yes, that's how obsessed I am. And I thought, August is so hot. It's literally probably, thanks to climate change, going to be the hottest month on record. So I was like, privates need lingerie to match. So let's just do a whole month of Motherhood on Private Parts Unknown. They're sending me some stuff. When my husband saw what they were sending me, his eyes popped out of his socket and we just got going right then and there. So this is life-changing lingerie. I am telling you, this stuff will change your sex life. And guess what? I have got a discount code for you. That is right. If you use code PRIVATE, you get 15% off. And I want to keep working with Motherhood for like ever. So yes, you can just go to their website, which is Motherhood.com, MARIEMUR.com. But use the link in the episode description, because then they can know that I sent you. And I really want them to know that I sent you. But regardless, just tag me. If you get something, tag me, show me how hot it is, show the internet. It's probably going to get you a ton of likes. And I want to know, like, what happened after you wore that, because either you got it on really hard with yourself, you got it on really hard with your partner or partners. There is going to be some, like, positive repercussions from wearing their stuff. I am telling you, hottest lingerie out there. So get yourself some Motherhood, celebrate August in style, and again, use code PRIVATE for 15% off. All right, let's go.
Hi, I'm Ashley Hamer. I'm a podcaster and the host of the podcast Taboo Science.
I have seen many tweets from you about motherhood, and I've been wanting to have this conversation with you for a long time, so I'm very excited. But I guess let's start at pre-baby. The love story. Love stories are not required to have babies, but in your case, I think there is one. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, I think so. I actually was going to be child-free, like, for a really long time. I was like, I don't need to have kids. Even since high school, I just wasn't really ever planning to have kids. And it's so funny because so many adults in my life were like, you'll change your mind. And I always hated that.
Right.
And then I changed my mind. Dang it. I met the right person. And suddenly I was like, oh, wait, I think I want to have kids. The weird thing was when I started dating my now husband, Jonathan, neither of us wanted kids. And that was sort of, you have those conversations and that, we both agreed on that. And then when I started kind of having those feelings, I felt like a fraud. Like I felt like I like cried over it. I was like, I have fooled this man into, he's going to think that I just was lying and that I just wanted to fool him into being in a relationship with me. And so when I finally admitted it to him, he was like, no, that's great. I think I could do that too. And he was on board. So it was really lovely. So yeah. And then we got married and then we started trying and it happened pretty quickly.
Amazing. So, okay, this is perfect because I'm right there right now. I have been documented on this podcast in the past being like, I'm not going to have kids. I was never that kind of like kid growing up. And then as an adult, I just have like been pursuing my passion so hardcore that it didn't feel like there was necessarily space for that. And I just in the last less than a year, I'm like reconsidering. So that totally resonates with me.
Good.
How long were you guys together before, things started to change in that direction?
Maybe a year. It was sort of, it happened pretty quickly. Like at least my feelings changing, I think it happened within the first year. And then, so we talked about it for a while. I think we had been dating 3 years when we got married because it was COVID and suddenly that just sort of accelerated everything, right? You go on lockdown and you're like, oh, my whole life is on pause. Like I want to do what I can to keep things moving. And so, yeah.
Okay. Tell me about the pregnancy. It sounds like it was planned.
Yes. Yeah.
Did you have a good pregnancy?
Yeah, sure.
Shit out of me.
I'll tell you.
You're currently pregnant too, right?
I am currently pregnant. Yes. And that's a whole other, second one is so different. Yeah. So it was like, okay, we got the IUD out. We're going to start trying. I'm very type A. So I was like, I got the apps and I, figured out when I was going to ovulate and things like that. And I don't want to say we did it on a schedule, but like, there was definitely like, oh, this is the week. Like we, need to make sure. So, we did all that. And I got pregnant in about 4 months. And when I saw that pregnancy test, there was definitely like the first moment of seeing it was like, oh, we can't go back. Oh, we can't change our minds. This is it. We can't, and it was just sort of like you had already gone over the edge and that was it. And then the next scary thing about my first pregnancy was just worrying constantly that the baby would be okay, right? Especially since my first kid I had at 37. And so I was like, that was one of the things was I was sure it just wouldn't happen. I was like, I'm too old, can't happen. And so I was just constantly like, well, I'm not going to get pregnant. And then once I got pregnant, I was like, well, it's not going to work out. The baby's not going to be okay. And it did work out. And like every single thing that I was like worried about didn't come to fruition, which is great. But also I was just, just a anxious mess. And but honestly, the pregnancy was fine. I had a pretty, I didn't have that much nausea. I was tired. I'm a big runner. I had to stop running because I had like hip issues. But otherwise it was actually like all things considered pretty easy pregnancy.
I have a history of ED. I don't know if you have any like body stuff in your past. And I'm just curious whether or not you do, like if any of that came up during the pregnancy with all the changes.
Yeah, it did. So I said I was a runner. There was like a time in my life, only like a few years before that, I had gone through this really intense weight loss, athletic kind of phase where I lost 30 pounds. I was like counting calories, paying very much attention to what I was eating. And I did have a little bit, I think looking back, like there was a little bit of ED. I remember crying in a dressing room at Ann Taylor because the size 0 pants were that they had, like the smallest pants they had in the store were too big for me. And I was like, oh, what have I done? So, I've had a bit of that. And getting pregnant is a mind fuck when it comes to your body. Yeah. It feels like, there's an alien inside you. Suddenly your body is kind of, it's as if you were programmed with instructions that you didn't know about. And suddenly it's just going through these instructions and you have no part in it. It was hard. It still is. I'm pregnant right now. I'm still hard to look in the mirror, still hard to kind of, you see these cute models wearing maternity clothes online and you find out that, oh, they're just wearing fake bellies and they are not actually pregnant. And so then that actually was a wonderful discovery for me because then I didn't feel so bad. But anyway, it is hard. You gain more than just a belly. And I think the way that I overcame it was just sort of like, I am feeding a life. I am nourishing a life. And this can all go back. I don't want to say it's going to go back to the way it was because it never will. You have a new body after you have a baby, but it doesn't mean it's a worse body. It's just a new body. Yeah.
You don't have to share if you're not comfortable, but I'm just curious how much weight you gained in your first pregnancy.
Let's see. I think I gained 30 to 35 pounds, which is like...
Oh, totally within the range.
Yeah, it's about, within the range. I'm not sure how much it's weird. I keep thinking like this pregnancy is totally different, but I think I'm gaining about the same as I did before. It's just, I'm still in the weird headspace.
Yeah. Okay. So, you did a bunch of research. You kind of knew what you were getting into. Were you still surprised by a bunch of stuff during pregnancy? What was surprising to you?
Yeah. Okay. So the first big surprise, and this is still like my favorite fact about pregnancy because a lot of people don't know it. My first big surprise was actually because I was podcasting every day because I had a daily science podcast, and I found myself out of breath when I would be reading lines, and I was like 6 weeks pregnant or something, and I was out of breath, and I was like, that's not supposed to happen. You're not out of breath until you're like huge and in your third trimester. But it turns out that the first thing your body does is it makes a bunch of new blood, but it doesn't make all that blood at once. It starts with the plasma, and the plasma does not carry oxygen. So your blood is basically diluted, and you do not have the oxygen carrying capacity that you did before. And so you're out of breath walking up the stairs, and you're out of breath going on runs and exercising. And so it feels like this shouldn't happen. Why am I so out of breath? But really it's because of the blood. That was the first huge surprise to me for sure.
Okay, that is fascinating. I would expect nothing less from the host of Taboo Science to teach me about the plasma. I guess I should ask, at what point did you know that you were pregnant the first time? Like, how many weeks in?
So the first time, it's hard to remember now. So much of it is a blur, but I think I knew like 6 or 7 weeks in. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. That's such a with all these abortion things.
I know.
It's like you're on the early end, and still you're like right after probably the cutoff of those 6-week bands. It's like, people don't realize that.
This second pregnancy, I didn't know until 10 weeks. I thought I was at like 5 or 6. And when I went in, they were like, no, you're way further along than you thought, because every pregnancy is different and I didn't have the same symptoms as before. So I just I didn't take a test. And then, it's easy. It's easy for that to happen for sure.
What about, okay, so we talked about some of the physical stuff. What about emotionally while you were pregnant? Did you feel anything different?
Yeah. I mean, like you do get like hormonally emotional. And I remember crying my eyes out at a mushroom documentary. Like that's like I just still remember I was watching a documentary on Netflix. It's very good. I remember what it's called, but it's about mushrooms on Netflix. And I think there might have been like a metaphor about babies, and there was a baby and I just started sobbing. It's just stuff like that happens. You just start crying out of nowhere. And then, of course, there was the impending change to my life. It was basically like you live your life kind of knowing what the next month, year is going to hold, basically. And with this, I was like, I'm going to have a baby, and then I don't know. Like, I don't know what I can plan for. I don't know what, like professional engagements I can say that I'll do, or even that I'll continue doing some of the things that I'm already doing. And it felt, that's a hard thing to wrap your mind around, that you have something that everybody, like so many people have had kids, you would think that you would know what to expect, but there's a lot of difference between children and a lot of difference in the way that you react versus someone else. And and I had no idea what I'd be able to handle. So I just had to see what was going to happen on the other side.
Okay. So getting to the other side, how did you prepare for childbirth? And were you fucking freaked out?
I was fucking freaked out. Yeah. So here's the other thing. As we said, like I'm very into science. And when I started the process of, when I started pregnancy and I was thinking about childbirth, I was like, I am going to trust whatever my doctors say because they are the professionals and they've done this a million times, which is a perfectly fine way to be. But then as I learned more and more, I started to learn that like there's a lot messed up in maternity care right now. And there's a lot of old science that doctors are hanging on to, and they aren't really reading up on like the latest research that says that actually doing this is better. And, you know, maybe, and so I actually took a class through Evidence-Based Birth, totally recommend. It was a Zoom class, and they have classes all over the place. And we learned about the science and evidence behind all of these different things that might happen during childbirth, before and after. And I armed myself with more knowledge. And so suddenly I became the kind of person who had a birth plan and got a doula, which I never thought I would do. But it was super helpful. And I felt when I was going in, I knew what to expect. I still didn't know what to expect. It was still totally it still totally threw me for a loop when I gave birth. But it was really nice to have that knowledge. I'm definitely the kind of person who feels more comfortable the more I read up on the thing that scares me.
Not that it necessarily matters, but was your OBGYN male or female?
She was female.
How did you feel about the doula experience?
Yeah, I would definitely recommend a doula, especially for a first-time pregnancy. I don't think I'm getting one this time, but it was really nice to have someone who I could voice all my fears to. Doulas come in all shapes and sizes. Like they're totally different ways that doulas can do their thing. But for mine, we would have like a weekly coffee date, and we would talk about things that maybe I was worried about or things that I should prepare for. And then when I had my very first contraction, she was the first person I called, and she came over and she helped me through, helped me labor at home before we went to the hospital. And then she kind of was the one to say like, we should probably call them and make sure that you should go in now. And then she was there through the whole thing and kind of helped me get in different positions and stuff. And then, I mean, for my birth, I eventually had to have a C-section because it wasn't progressing. And she was there to document all of it. She was taking notes the entire time. And so now I have like this whole printout of like everything that happened every like 10 minutes, which is really cool because it's such a blur that there's no way I would remember all that. So that was really cool.
That is awesome. And then your husband, were you like, get away, or was he very involved?
He was involved. And actually that was part of the great thing about the birth class too, was that it took him from being like, I don't know, I'm just a man, I'm going to do what you say, to like knowing what was going to happen, being very like, he had opinions about stuff, and he was like suddenly, way more invested in what was going to happen. And so when I went into labor, he was super helpful, and it was basically like the doula and him kind of tag teaming, helping me out. It was great.
Amazing. So, you prepped for it. Was childbirth what you thought it would be, or were there surprises there?
It's funny because I'm a C-section baby. Both of my siblings are C-section babies. And I figured I'm probably going to have a C-section. I just like, if my mom had to have one, I probably am going to have one. I don't even know if that's true, but that's what I thought. But I did, after, learning a lot about it, I was like, I would like to try to do it, the old fashioned way though. And so it was a little disappointing that I had to have a C-section. But also I had mentally prepared for it, and I knew that it was a possibility. And I didn't have negative feelings about C-sections, like, because I was a C-section baby, I came out fine, that kind of thing. So I was okay with it. But yeah, I don't know, looking back on it though, it definitely like, sometimes I wonder, so it's the kind of thing where, again, a doula would probably be helpful, because it would be nice to like have a conversation about everything that happened in the birth and like why these things happened. Because one of the weird things was, this is another thing I didn't know could happen. You dilate, right? You dilate from 1 centimeter to 10 centimeters, and 10 centimeters, that one's you're fully dilated. I got up to 9, and then I went back down to 8.
What?
Did not know that was possible. Yeah. And apparently there can be swelling. So if you push before you're ready, you can cause swelling and it can go backwards. So that's what happened to me. Yeah. So like, things like that. I didn't know why I went backwards. For like 2 years, I was like, why did that happen? No one has ever explained that to me. And I finally like started looking it up myself and learned that, oh, yeah, I pushed too soon. That's not good.
That's crazy. You got to do a whole series, like your kink series, like all about pregnancy.
I've thought about it, especially since I do have one episode about childbirth that I did before. It was similar to what you're doing probably, because I had started to think about having kids and I was like, I want to do an episode on childbirth, and I can't bring myself to listen to that because I probably said a bunch of stuff that wasn't true. But like, I mean, maybe I'm sure I researched things, but it's like the point of view is so different. I should listen to it. I should listen back.
And the lived experience. Yeah, I'm sure you're like, please sit down, lady.
Exactly.
So tell us about, I mean, the recovery, the baby coming. I'm sure there's just like so many emotions and all kinds of body stuff happening. And yeah.
So boy, that's where everything just kind of blends together, because you bring this baby home. I mean, I'm sure you've heard other people say like, they just let us take this home with us. But it was like, yeah, your life is forever changed. It's still your same house, but suddenly there's this new being in it. And there was a lot of learning on the job, because I haven't really been around kids a lot. I don't consider myself like a natural nurturer, and I've learned to become one. Like, I'm definitely more of a mother now than I was, when I came home with that newborn. But yeah, it's just a lot of sitting around, feeding a baby, hoping the baby sleeps, wondering when the baby's going to wake up. It's just monotony for weeks and weeks and weeks. But it's like, it's hard to describe. It's so hard and it's so nice. It's equal parts awful and wonderful. And it's just so impossible to describe.
It sounds like a very weird drug.
Yes. Yeah, it is. It's like that. Yeah.
I've heard, not to get too gross, but I've heard so many women that I'm compelled to ask you say that going to the bathroom after having your baby for the first time is like up there in terms of nightmare experiences. Did that track for you?
You know what? I had heard that so much too. It wasn't that, and maybe it was the C-section that wasn't as bad. Yeah, I was expecting like a monster poop. Yeah, it wasn't. Yeah. It wasn't like the stories I had heard. So yeah, everyone's different, I guess. And it maybe C-section poops are different than vaginal birth poops.
That would make sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, I'm sure, there's swirling emotions, but did you deal with any postpartum depression?
I had a little bit of postpartum anxiety. I actually did go on anti-anxiety meds for a little while.
Oh, that makes total sense to me.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of worry about, the baby being okay, a little bit of intrusive thoughts about the ways that your baby could be hurt. And so, and also you're just not, like, my way of, my natural anti-anxiety meds are exercise, and I couldn't do that. So, and then also I just like had much less interaction with the outside world. And so that's kind of how it came for me, was through anxiety and not depression. But yeah, it was pretty mild. And I think I took maybe a month of anxiety meds, and then I just kind of weaned myself off of them, and that was it.
I feel comfortable asking you this because it seems like you're a very happy mother, but was there ever a point that you were like, oh my fucking God, what did I do?
Oh yeah. Like, yeah, constantly. I think that's normal. I think it's like, with anything, I felt that way signing up for a marathon, right? Like, I felt that way, like, you feel that way about big life things. And I think it's normal to feel that way. And yeah, it went between, oh my God, this is the best thing in the world, and oh my God, what did I do? Like, I've completely ruined my life. And it just, you just let those thoughts exist, and then they go, and you're fine.
So how did it work out with your husband in terms of like splitting responsibilities and stuff like that? Did you ever have any furious feminist moments where you were like, I'm sorry, this needs to be 50-50?
Yes. So it's funny because I think I set myself up for failure starting with thoughts like that. And I think it's totally normal to start with thoughts like that. You want a relationship to be 50-50. But the truth about giving birth as a woman is that it's so biological at the beginning. For the first few months, that baby needs you. Like, you want to be able to just hand it off to the dad and go do something and then come back. But like, the baby really, really needs its mom for those first few months. And so, the way that he would help obviously is like he would wash dishes and he would clean and do laundry and things like that. But like, yeah, it's interesting that now that, my kid is now 2, and it is so much more 50-50 now than it was before. And so much of that is not due to my husband, who has wanted to help this whole time. It's due to the kid. There's a point where she stopped being like, mom is the only one who can take care of me. And she started becoming, more of a daddy's girl. And now it feels much more equitable. And yeah, none of that was anything that we did. It's just the fact of having a child and what that child needs. So yeah, I read up on how relationships change after babies, and I read up on all the tips that to keep things equitable. And so much of that was thrown in my face by a baby that, would only, like, she wouldn't only nurse. She would take a bottle, luckily, but a lot of kids, some babies won't. And yeah, it's so much of it is just up to the kid.
Yeah. I've said, like, man, if I could be a dad, I'd probably already be a dad.
Yeah. Totally.
Okay, so now your kid is 2. We'll talk about that you decided to go back for more.
Yeah.
But tell us how motherhood changed you for better or worse. And I know you have some thoughts on this.
Yeah. I've always cared a lot about what other people thought about me. It's been, a weakness, I think. And it's really gotten in the way of, I'm a creative person. I'm a musician. I'm a podcaster. And like, so many of those thoughts can get in the way of like taking big swings, professionally and creatively. And having a kid really made me realize that I'm not the center of my universe anymore. And it took the pressure off. And suddenly now I feel like I can, not only can I take big swings, but I should take big swings because I have this kid who's depending on me. Maybe these swings aren't even financial, right? They're just like creative swings, but it's like, I want to be that person for her. Like, I want to be that role model. So it just makes me more motivated to be a better creative, be better at everything I do, and not worry so much about what people are going to think.
And it seems like I see you post about when you're going out to do a music event, and clearly you're still doing a lot of podcasting and everything like that. So time-wise, you are able to carve out the time, right?
Yes. And so this is also really kid dependent. My kid, she sleeps really well, and that has opened up a lot for me. She sleeps from like 6:37 to at night to 6:37 in the morning.
Wow.
Yeah, she sleeps a lot, and she takes these amazing, now she's a toddler, she takes these amazing like 3-hour naps. So I'm like, this is the kind of thing where you like don't say these things to other parents because they'll hate you, but like this is my reality. And so I'm so blessed to have that. And so for a lot of this time, I've been able to get up at 6 a.m. and work on my podcast. And then she wakes up at 7. And then she goes down at night and I can work on other things. My husband also does a lot of the same stuff that, like, he's a YouTuber and a off and on podcaster and does a bunch of other stuff. And like, so we both really value that like project time. And so, we get to do that after she's in bed. Now things are changing. She's waking up earlier now. So I have lost that hour in the morning. And so things like that change too. It's like you just don't have any guarantees and you just have to work around the edges. I'm also really lucky to work from home. So I have a little bit of extra time that way. But yeah, so you figure out what the child will allow and you do it then.
I'm praying for a sleeper.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
If I decided to.
I'm praying for a sleeper this time too. Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, was it planned to go back for number 2? Were you like, oh, I guess we're doing this? Like, how did that happen?
This is another one where I was like, oh yeah, this is all we need to do. I actually I think I sold a bunch of, I sold a lot of her her newborn paraphernalia and stuff. Was like, yeah, we're not doing this again. And then, along the way, it just started. Actually, even like when Roe was struck down, I was like, well, I'm not going to have another kid now because I don't want to get pregnant in this climate.
Yeah, it's scary.
Yeah. But the weird thing was when that happened and I was like, oh, I'm not going to have a kid. And then I felt the disappointment inside of myself. And I was like, oh, maybe I really wanted this. So yeah, obviously there was a lot more decision making beyond that. But like, I don't know, your body tells you when it's time, I guess. And honestly, my kid is just so wonderful that like I was like, maybe, I want to do this again. Like it was fun. maybe we'll have fun again. And also I thought about her having a sibling and like so much of this is about her too. It's just, I see her having a sibling and having a playmate and, hopefully it ends up that way. Hopefully they don't hate each other. But yeah, that was a big part of it.
Do you think you're done at 2, or is there a chance you'll go back for more?
See, I will say right now, yes, I'm done at 2. Do I think I'm going to hold myself to that? I have no idea. Like I've changed so much over these years that I can't trust anything now.
Yeah. Okay. So what advice would you leave me and the privates with about any of these things that we talked about? Pregnancy, childbirth, motherhood. What are your big kind of lessons that you would like to impart?
My biggest fear in having a kid was losing my creative drive and becoming boring. And I just want to say that if you open your eyes and you look around and you actually start paying attention to how many of your role models have kids, it's a lot. And they don't talk about them all the time, but they're there. And you start to realize that it doesn't make you boring. It makes you a little bit more of a superhero, I think. It just, yeah, I wish I could go back to me when I was trying to decide to have kids and just like tell myself how good it is for creativity. It's really been a good decision on that part.
We don't talk about that at all. And so I was a few boyfriends ago dating this comedian, and I remember Ali Wong was like doing, tiny shows at this point, right? And I remember him telling me about this conversation that he overheard where like she was deciding and older comedian was like, you're worried about, content, whatever. Like, this is the most relatable thing you could ever do. And she went on and all of her specials are like about motherhood, having kids, all that stuff. So,
yeah, I love her specials and I love her parenthood stuff. Yeah, absolutely. Yes.
Yeah. This has been amazing to chat with you about all this. Please let us know where we can follow you, find your podcasts, etc.
Yes, you can follow me at Smashly Hamer on Twitter and on Threads. And then my podcast is, I was about to say it's not as wholesome as this content is, but I'm on Private Parts Unknown, so I don't have to worry. Taboo Science. The latest miniseries is all about the science of kinks and fetishes. So yeah, I think your audience will enjoy it.
It's so good. Yes, check that out. And yeah, thanks again.
Thank you.
Okay, so I just have to remind you guys, it is Marie Mar month at Private Parts Unknown. It is hot as hell, and that is why you need some hot-ass lingerie to match. Their stuff could not be sexier. Oh, and can I just say something? I was on their website just putting everything in my shopping cart, and I saw that one of their models was rocking a C-section scar. And I have to say, what a cool brand. It was hot. She was hot. It was like, yes, more power to her. We just did a whole interview about motherhood, and we should celebrate mothers more. You like give your body to the cause, you like do something so hard, and that does not diminish your sexuality one bit. It makes you a goddess. And I love that they were admiring it as much as me by hiring this model. So anyway, kudos to Marie Mar. They are allies, they are amazing, and their lingerie is so friggin' hot. So treat yourself, privates. head on over there, get yourself some sexy ass harness, get yourself a bodysuit, get yourself some fishnet something, and get it hopping with yourself, with your partner, with your partners, whatever. There is gonna be some good fallout from wearing their lingerie, I promise you. So again, use the link, but their website is mariemur, MARIEMUR.com. And use code PRIVATE for 15% off. And I want to see what you bought. So even if you don't want to post it publicly, if you post it publicly, you can just tag me. And I'm sure, like, not only will I see it and love it, but the whole internet will give you a ton of likes. But even if you don't want to share it publicly, send me a DM or send me an email and let me know what you got, because I want to see. Thanks again to Ashley, and thank you so much for tuning into this episode of Private Parts Unknown. Stay tuned right here, because I've got another sexy episode coming your way next week. For the latest episodes, look down and make sure you're following us on your favorite podcast player now. To stay in touch between episodes, follow me at Courtney Kocak, last name is Kocak, on Instagram and Twitter. And follow the show at Private Parts Unknown on Instagram and at Private Parts on Twitter. And listen, privates, if you want a super fun and horny way to help support the show, your girl is on OnlyFans. So if you are interested in a Playboy-style peek behind the podcast, you can subscribe to my OnlyFans account. It is onlyfans.com/CocoPeepShow. As I said, it is a very horny way to help support the show. So if you are interested, join me over at onlyfans.com/CocoPeepShow. And of course, subscribe to our newsletter, which is privatepartsunknown.substack.com. There is a link for that in the episode description. And subscribe to the Private Parts Unknown YouTube channel for the video version of a bunch of episodes. The audio episodes also automatically update over there. So just head on over to youtube.com/privatepartsunknown and smash that subscribe button. Again, that is youtube.com/privatepartsunknown. And check out my other podcast for more of my audio creations. I have The Bleeders, about book writing and publishing, and Podcast Bestie, which is a best friend to podcasters trying to grow and monetize their shows. And if you are a writer and you not only want to generate a ton of new material, but get it published, like the viral essay I wrote for Cosmo, which you can listen to a few episodes back, I have got the writing intensive of your dreams going down in September. It was the writing intensive of my dreams. That's why I put it together. It's called Back to School Pitch Party. And I actually just wrapped up a cohort in July. And oh my God, my students were so productive. They wrote between 27,000 and 40,000 words, and they have a bunch of bylines pending, one at a huge publication. I will wait to brag about it until it's official, but I'm so proud of them. And if you are interested in having a similar experience, head on over to my website. It's just CourtneyKocak.com/teaching. Again, Courtney Kocak, KOCAK.com/teaching. And you can use my code PRIVATE for $100 off. Shout out to Amy Rausch for the bomb-ass theme music. For more info about Amy and her music, check out amyrausch.com. That is Amy, RAASCH.com. This episode was mixed by my beloved audio guy, Michael Castaneda of Plastic Audio. And after enjoying this content, could we ask you for a favor? Just go to ratethispodcast.com/private and give us a 5-star rating and review. I am trying to hit #1 on the sexuality charts before I go out with a book proposal related to the pod, and you can help me do that. So if you are listening on Spotify, you just go to our page, you click the 3 dots, that hamburger sign, you click rate show, and you click all 5 stars. And if you are listening on Apple Podcasts or CastBox or anywhere else, you can just go to ratethispodcast.com/private, and right there you can leave a 5-star rating and review. Easy peasy. Thank you so much in advance. Oh, and there is one more way you can help support the show. We are now on the Fountain app. So if you are listening on Fountain or another V4V platform and you get value from this show, you can support us by sending a boostagram. And you can even send a comment along with your boost, which I have to say, those are my favorite messages to get because they come with a little bit of Bitcoin. Thank you so much for sticking with me until the end. Until next time, stay curious and keep exploring. Love you, privates.